Oh, Koi, you're with us. Fantastic. I'm just going over to live stream.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Nice
Hi,
to
everyone.
meet you. Hi.
Nice to meet
Hello.
Okay, and we should be live streaming. So let's sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, we are live. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. Welcome to Digital Fashion Week. This is the 5th edition. We have 5 amazing panels today. We are kicking off with connecting IRL fashion to URL assets. I am so honored by the panelists we have. We have Koi Griffin, who is moderating. We have David Giordano from Brand New Vision, Maxim Reitbridge from 010, and Olivia Moignon. I apologize for the
Don't worry, it's very difficult. Moijon.
Moijon from Exclusible. Koi, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm going to disappear and I'll come back in about 55 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to
Thank
Connect Real Life Fashion to URL Assets. My name is Koi Griffin, and I am the Operations Director at CF, which stands for the Council of International African Fashion Education. And I've been working in fashion technology for over 7 years. Today, we have great panelists with us, and I'm super excited for everyone to join us within this conversation. And I would love each panelist to introduce himself for 30 seconds, just explaining your background, who you are, and more about the brand you work for. David, would you like to start?
Sure. Of course. My name is David Giordano. I'm with Brand New Vision. My background for the last, 25 years has been in the fashion world, brand building. I started my first brand maybe 15 years ago. I specialize in footwear and kind of got the bug of Web3 about 2.5 years ago and fell into the rabbit hole like all of us, and just think it's the right hill to climb and think it's going to have a major transformative effects on the fashion business. And I'm so glad to be on the forefront of it. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Super excited to have you a part of this conversation. Maxim?
Hi, my name is Maxim Reitbridge. I'm the CPO at 010, an AR fashion platform that essentially allows people to wear digital clothes in augmented reality as if they were real. My background is mostly in tech. I've been working with different technology-driven companies in the past, including some companies that did size prediction, companies that did public transport routing, companies that did eye tracking analysis to determine reading quality, etc. So I'm really into deep tech, and we have plenty of that here at 010 as well.
Amazing. Super excited to learn more about 010. And Olivia?
Yes, so I'm Olivier. I'm based in New York. I am one of the co-founders of Exclusible. We are a Web3 company that started as a marketplace for luxury brands to sell their NFTs. And we have since then diversified our activities. We own a very talented Web3 studio based in the US that has built more than 200 metaverse experiences across 20 different metaverse platforms. And we are also developing our own software meant to use NFTs as a CRM technology for brands and corporations wanting to approach Web3 from a new marketing angle. My background is in luxury. I spent 18 years working at brands like Cartier, Goyard, and also in beauty.
Amazing. So happy to have you all. So let's just get started. for those who don't know, what is a URL asset and how does it relate to the fashion industry? Anyone can take this one.
Who wants to go first? So
Okay,
I
I'll
guess,
go with it. Okay.
yeah,
you
okay,
go in.
take it.
Yeah.
No, take
Okay,
it.
I mean, I don't like the term URL asset. I think it works really
Agree.
well as a pun, like it's a perfect pun. It
Mhm.
works really well in conjunction with IRL, but I think, it's sort of diminishes a very complex entity into, just a link. Whereas I think what we have in digital space is much, much more than that. And I feel like, digital assets out there, I mean, how do they relate to the fashion industry? I mean, it depends on the assets, but there are so many kinds out there. I feel like, so I mean, like Olivier obviously knows a lot about luxury NFTs. David, you probably have plenty of experience with that as well. And apart from, NFTs, there are also in-app purchases in various ecosystems that are also very much fashion. There are items that could exist without any price attached to them or being part of any blockchain that are still very much digital assets that relate to fashion. So I think like it's a very complex question to handle easily. What do you think?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. No, I was going to say just the concept of a digital asset is so new. We're so at the beginning of it. I mean, 2 years ago, when someone said they owned a JPEG and that it became a joke and a meme, but the idea of a digital asset almost changes everything. The fact that you can actually authenticate something you own that isn't physical. I mean, this is the first time in history, the blockchain has enabled this. So the idea of what intellectual property is, what physical goods are, everything changes. And the fashion industry has to look at this as, opportunities to build community, but opportunities to sell more things and actually opportunities to change the corporate structure if you really go deep into it. I mean, you can co-create now with the crowd. People that you don't know could be your best customer service people, and you can reward them through digital assets or track their activity through digital assets. And again, it's complex and I can go on so many tangents, but that's where I'll stop there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it kind of goes into the questions of what's the difference between an in real life asset versus a digital asset. This may also help the entire community get a better grasp and understanding of why digital assets are super important and the benefits of it. Olivier, why would you start?
Yes. So I always like to talk about the what and the why. So if we talk about the what is a digital asset? David and Max explain it very well. There is nothing new in the sense that in video games, the concept of having skins and different accessories and decor for your avatars or whatever experience you're having, that has been around for like years and years and years. NFT technology for the first time allows ownership of that skin or whatever accessory you buy in-game. And now with the advent of the metaverse and 3D and Web3 in general, it creates an opportunity for the why to take place. And our vision when we started working on Exclusible a year and a half ago, we knew we were at the very beginning of a reality that will unfold in this decade, in the 2020s. We have the absolute certainty that every brand in the world will sell digital assets in the near future. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we envision this experience where you can be on a brand's website, luxury or mainstream, it doesn't matter. And you will have a section for everything we know today, which is physical products. But there will be another section for digital assets, so digital products. There will be teams in the headquarters working hand in hand with the physical product designers. Those teams will basically be 3D designers, digital artists, creating those new garments, those new digital assets. People will be able to add them to cart at the same time and pay for a Web 2 and a Web 2 like a physical and a Web 3 NFT digital assets. And then the ultimate goal is interoperability, where you buy a garment from, I don't know, Gucci or H&M, doesn't matter. And you select on which platform, for which platform you want to wear that garment. And I think that's, so Maxim is at the forefront of that with augmented reality, digital fashion. And so we're going through these early stage steps to build this grand vision, which, at least for me, will happen with absolute certainty.
Yes, definitely. I do want to highlight one of the key points that you said was the teams will change, right? So we're going to need more experts that are within the various technologies. So digital fashion experts, people who are experts in augmented reality and other Web3 tech. Maxim, I would love to get your thoughts on this.
Actually, I feel like, Olivier, you are speaking in future tense, but in our experience, so many companies are already doing just what you mentioned. So obviously couldn't name names yet, but I am seeing some incredible digital production teams in-house at major brands. Like they are using software like Browseware, obviously, in their actual manufacturing process. And because of that, they start with the digital assets.
Yep.
So in fact, many items, it's like that moment in music production when they started mastering in digital, like in 1970s. They switched to digital mastering around that time. And after that, if you're using vinyl, it still made sense for most people because that was a higher quality, blah, blah, blah. But you were not getting the advantages of vinyl before that. So I feel like it might be the same moment with physical clothing. Now, all clothing will very soon be digital at first, and only then later it will be becoming physical. And since you have digital assets at first, and that's the first step of the creation, it makes sense to sell those as well, or try this to see the performance and only produce the stuff that works the best. So we often speak of this in future tense, but we are already seeing this. We are already seeing in-house digital 3D teams that are doing insane work. And I feel like the future is much closer than we all expected.
Yes, I totally agree. David, we'll love your input on this as well.
Okay, because I know we went around. What was the original question?
Yeah, the question.
That's right, because we went towards the future. But
in real life, fashion versus digital assets.
Fashion versus digital assets.
Hmm?
See, I'm going to agree with, as an entrepreneur, as someone who has my own footwear brand now, I only start with the 3D. The speed, I can have a 3D model done in 24 hours, color it up, and show the world what we have, and to get real-time feedback. I mean, everything else seems like a waste to develop a sample across 3 months, go to a trade show, 9 months later produce it. The world has changed. Culture is moving much too fast in that sense. So, I agree, with Max that the future is here in that sense. The idea of video direction and the way brands need to communicate and use augmented reality, and it's here. And I think a brand that's not communicating in this kind of modern way, looks behind.
Yep, definitely. For those who may not know, can you define the definition of augmented reality and virtual reality?
Well, two experts here, but I'll take a crack at it. To me, virtual reality is a much more immersive experience that probably needs hardware in order to go into a metaverse. So you're wearing goggles. And I'll explain, augmented reality is kind of a layer on top of our everyday world.
Yep.
And,
perfect.
Yeah.
Max, Olivia, would you like to add to that?
Same definition here.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
Yeah.
But
same
don't
definition.
forget about mixed reality as well.
Yes. So I will let you speak about that one.
Yes, please add about mixed.
Well, since we have VR, which is full immersion, you get completely isolated from the real world. AR, you get sort of a layer of extra stuff in the over the real world. And with mixed reality, you sort of get AR, but more of that. So you could have some extra items, extra elements, extra things, just, augment more stuff. I feel like at least this is a definition that comes to my mind. I might be very wrong.
No, I definitely agree. And to add to that, so what are some indicators that a fashion brand, an upcoming fashion brand, is ready to develop digital assets are ready to start utilizing augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. I know we have quite a few fashion brands in the crowd, so I think it'll be great to really get a step-by-step or a few indicators that they know they're ready to start working in tech with different tech softwares.
So,
Honestly, sorry, go ahead.
So maybe I very quickly, I think that there are already like a lot of steps already there. So a lot of brands have already done some type of AR filters, Snapchat or not. You guys are completely right. Like the 3D modelization of pretty much every asset has been a big endeavor for most brands, not necessarily geared towards Web3 or metaverse, but more towards a better experience on e-commerce. So that's already like the natural step that have happened. And so now is once we have this library, these assets available, how can you even go further into exploring this new world? Web3, so powered by blockchain. If we look at metaverse, you don't need to be Web3. It doesn't need to be a Web3 experience. It can be a completely Web2 immersive 3D experience. It's all different type of applications and also desire. Not every brand is ready to take the leap and go deeper into that type of projects or programs.
Yeah. Great. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think before metaverse and Web3, I think the word that was kind of overused was innovation. We heard that 2017, 18, innovation. Like to me, from a fashion point of view, like innovation needs to be replaced with Web3 activities or Web3 research and development. So I think all fashion brands need to understand what's going to happen. And then to say what makes a brand ready to do this, I think is a different story. I think brands that are not afraid to experiment, brands that are in it for the long term. I think brands with strong intellectual property and fandom obviously have a much easier time to do this. Yeah, you know, I think brands that think in terms of world building, that's something we talk about a lot, brand new vision.
Yep.
You know, what's the narrative? How do you weave it into a more, an experience that's deeper and more emotional? You know, I tell brands that you need to think of it in terms of more like a Netflix series than creating just a one-off marketing activation. So I think brands with just an open mind and understand they have to change what they've done in the past is how I answer the question.
Definitely agree with that. Maxim, any thoughts?
I would go with a more pragmatic, a practical approach here. I think that if we're talking about an established brand, I mean, obviously, first of all, if your production pipeline has already been digitized, and so many major brands are doing that now because it just makes more sense, you're ready. You have the assets. You only need to adapt them to AR, metaverse. You need obviously to find, I mean, like we are missing right now, I think all of us, a platform that would be one entry point that would point you in all directions later. But still, I mean, like brands with digital pipeline for production are ready. Brands that don't have that yet are ready as well. I mean, like, let's be honest, they probably have amazing designs if they are a major brand, or they have designs that sell well, even if they're not amazing, who knows? So they are ready because there are ways for them to enter this world without having digital assets also. It will obviously be slightly more limited in scope, but still. And if we're not talking about established brands and we're talking about like upcoming brands, I feel like the biggest designers of tomorrow are going to come from digital fashion design. So the same way the biggest fashion designers of 1960s were like these smaller new names, the same way, like actually the same way the new designers of all generations have been these little underdogs who were going against the big fashion houses who have been around for a very long time. And now their names are on big fashion houses. Now, I think this generation, this is going to start from the digital fashion design simply because it gives them so much more room for opportunity. Instead of creating one sample over the course of a month, just like David said, you can do several samples that will explore different ideas. And because, you know, to hit this je ne sais quoi moment, to find this like particular point where you are the innovator, you'll have to be coming from this background. So I think, yeah, if you are an up and coming designer, if you're just starting out, think about digital fashion design, because this is where your opportunities may be.
Yes, I hope all of the upcoming designers are hearing this and taking notes, because that is great advice. So we are also seeing the rise in the use of augmented reality to visualize digital fashion assets. And your company, Maxim, does a great job at merging the digital and physical world. So can you please explain the process of how your company utilizes AR to connect digital fashion assets as well as in real life experiences?
Well, I mean, you know, I could start and speak for several hours and it still wouldn't end. So I probably wouldn't do that. So I'll just give you an overview of what we're doing. So right now, actually, we're working with several different brands, and we are using augmented reality to connect their physical garments or items that they're making with augmented reality in several ways. So, of course, we have our app, which is a way for someone out there to easily try on a digital twin of an item. But what I'm very pleasantly surprised by is that many brands want to enhance their digital twins. They realize that the simple digital twin it wouldn't be a waste, but it wouldn't be as fun as what's possible with augmented reality. So the clients we're working with, they're very happy to have like essentially augmented versions that incorporate new ideas that could only exist in augmented reality. And apart from the app, of course, we have what we call the AI mirror. It's this amazing setup where you have this huge screen, a camera pointed at you, and it works like magic, but where you essentially see yourself in a mirror wearing AR garments. And this is also something where we obviously could enter points of sale. We could do outdoor advertising with that. We could even do like some high concept ideas with this. So this sort of also connects IRL with what you would call, with what you would call URL, but I would call digital items nonetheless. But I feel like obviously there is also room for digital ownership, like for a complete for a complete rethink of what's happening in there. And we are also seeing requests for that. And we are very much happy to do that with people and companies who are making real life garments. I mean, like our earliest collections, it's a return. They were linked with physical collections by emerging designers. So Edward Crutchley, I think it was Alessandra Sipa, we also had a collab with Maisie Willen. All of them, like they brought their ideas into AR with a new twist. It sort of gave them a way to do something they couldn't do in physical reality. And I think that was like one of the earliest examples of how this could be done. So yeah, and I mean, of course, there is the boring combination of all these things. So, you know, you could simply take an AR asset and add a buy button to it. This is an easy way out. I think this is a very much a service, but this is also, you know, something that works. This is also, while we could, you know, be more forward thinking, you know, and we could be all focused on what's to come. We also, you know, I love that AR also helps the existing mechanisms to work and existing e-commerce companies to thrive, and that's cool.
Yeah, I think that's also a great way for companies to start to utilize augmented reality for the first time to really streamline that e-commerce process. So I totally agree. Olivier, you have over 18 years of experience with brands like Cartier, Goyard, and more recently, the CEO of Vestid. How can brands continue to utilize these digital assets to develop in real life luxury experiences that no one has seen before?
So one thing we have not mentioned so far is also the use of NFC technology, so the chips embedded in the garments, which then creates also that relationship between a physical garment. You scan, you tap your phone, then it brings you to a digital experience. It could be the NFT giving you the certificate of authenticity of the product. It could be linked directly to some type of, you know, secondary marketplace. So it's information transparency, but also the ownership of the garment. It could be linked also to some type of, you know, metaverse, immersive 3D experience linked to that garment, or a much more creative environment linked to a collection. So I'm a big believer also of big believer in phygital. I know the term has been overused, but this idea that within your user journey, your consumer journey, you can have touch points with a brand which start in the digital. Again, I'm all about the 3D immersive environments and the metaverse. You can create quests and you can gamify an experience, highly creative. So for the first time, you can really express the creativity of the designer, the brand. You can express your brand equity, your heritage, your storytelling in a very different way, much more engaging, creative, immersive, social as well, because depending on your platform choice, you can have up to 500 people at the same time in your experience, and they can interact with each other. So that's also something very new. But then you can also link that experience through augmented reality filters to your physical store. You could create the impossible version of your flagship store on Fifth Avenue, for example. People will discover that metaverse experience through portals that they can open on their phone. You can also use NFT as rewards, proof of attendance, proof of presence, whatever you want to call them. And it creates a gamification of the physical experience. You can, a little bit like Pokemon Go.
Yep.
You can put these NFTs through AR filters. You can put them in stores and people will go and find them, which creates a new type of relationship, a new type of engagement with the brand. So I'm a big believer that that type of engagement and activation will happen. We're already working on projects like this. We see more and more projects along those lines. And it's something that I call fan-urism. So it's a mix of consumerism and also fans. It's how you basically monetize, if it's not a taboo word, how do you monetize your fan base? Because you have people you have millions of followers on Instagrams who are not necessarily clients of a brand. But now through NFTs, through everything I just described, they can engage and have a different type of relationship with the brand. And NFTs become basically the link that comes to validate this new relationship. And the brand can then deploy some type of CRM and marketing campaigns to these NFT holders.
Definitely agree. Thank you for your point of view. And David, there's an interesting article on your site called Where to Earn in the Metaverse. Fashion parties will never be the same. So can you please explain this concept and its relevance to fashion?
Yeah, I mean, the concept is more of a, with the name Brand New Vision, it's more of a dream how we can see the metaverse unfolding 10, 15 years down in the future. So, the idea of the metaverse, to me, it's like the singularity, right? The idea of like when our digital lives become more important than our IRL lives. Like that to me is an interesting way to define the metaverse. So I think with the article and with our overall vision is, we're working on currently building our own metaverse. We're fortunate enough to be a part of Animoca Brands, which is a gaming conglomerate out of Hong Kong with so many different other companies that we're kind of, working with. Now, so the idea of the article was to kind of take the mechanisms of how people in fashion today or talents in fashion today make money. And what would that look like? Let's dream. And what would that look like in 15 years when everything's more digital? So the whole concept is underpinned with the idea of kind of tokenomics and the idea that companies or communities could eventually become like their own nation states and create jobs and earning potential within themselves. I know it's a little far-fetched. So the idea is, if you can create mechanisms within a metaverse and people can style to earn, the stylists move, that way. So it's almost like I'll start a little back. The idea of what the media kind of blueprint business model is today about eyeballs, click-throughs. But what happens if designers that can, get a lot of attention for their garments on a social feed can get paid in tokens, or people that can take clothing that's digital and rework it and resell it? So it's kind of just this philosophical paper on what the fashion business, could look like in the future.
Amazing. Yes, I encourage everyone to read this article. It's really good. So in the fashion industry, specifically within fashion tech, I feel like we talk a lot about different technologies, but we don't really highlight the analytics as much, right? So one of the main benefits of transitioning to digital assets is you're able to track certain elements that you can't track in real life, right? So I'm very curious to know, like, what are some KPIs or insights that fashion brands should consider when utilizing digital assets? I'll start with you, Olivier.
Sure. So if we talk about NFTs, okay, then you have naturally you can derive on-chain data. And there are lots of different platforms that allow you to get all sorts of on-chain data. It gets a bit more tricky if you want to pair on-chain and off-chain data. Then it depends also on the metaverse platform. So this digital garment will have to be displayed or worn on a platform. And so you have Web2 platforms, you have Web3 platforms. So I think there's a great possibility, but there's also the reality of the ecosystem, But you can also derive user data, which then you can compare to your e-commerce. So usually we see that with immersive 3D environments, people have a tendency to spend a lot more minutes in there compared to e-commerce. Engagement, conversion, and recurrence metrics are usually also higher by 30 to 70%. And then I assume if you want to have data on the garment itself, on the digital fashion, or the digital asset, then it needs to be linked to an NFT. But Max probably has a lot more to say about that than me.
Well, I mean, honestly, highly unlikely. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned NFTs. That's cool. And on-chain data is absolutely a godsend, especially like, you could create one item and it could exist for decades. Well, I mean, maybe at least years, being resold and you're still getting money from the sale, which is, amazing for independent designers. But, if we are talking about KPIs and data and all sort of, that's more like corporate talk. And I think for corporations, at this moment, there is this desire to measure everything in terms of income they could get potentially, or income they would definitely get from this. And I feel like this might be the wrong way to approach this right now, since this is an emerging market. It's still, it's still being built. And I feel like sometimes when you as a brand want to measure the success of a particular IRL to URL transfer, you shouldn't rely on monetary values, at least not as the only way to measure this. So I feel like engagement, and general influence of what you have done on your sales, which could be very hard to pinpoint, could also be absolutely insane. But since you'll be getting all sorts of attention and so on and so on and so on, and that's also a thing to consider here. So it's not all just about the sales, and I feel like you have to invest into this field a little bit first.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think one key thing to highlight is, for everyone watching, make sure you're checking out your conversions, the engagement, right? So for example, if you do have a offline retail store, some things you just can't measure that you can measure online. So for example, when a user walks in, you don't really know how long or the average amount of time a user stays into your store, which items they're browsing, et cetera. Versus online, you're able to track those things about your users. So maybe looking at those insights compared to monetization, such as like what Maxim said, are great indicators that you can use for digital assets.
And also, to continue, I would say that, at this stage, digital assets could allow you to find out what will perform the best in real life before you even spend a penny on the production costs. physical production costs.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a very, very big opportunity for big companies that don't really want to, I mean, like, especially for luxury brands, manufacturing costs a lot of money.
Yep.
Especially for some items.
That's one of the most exciting use cases, I think, at the moment. It's this concept of like pre-production, pre-orders. And the 3D model allows you, and you can also make it absolutely phantasmagorical if you want. You can be highly creative. It doesn't need to be, as Max was saying, like just a digital replica, a digital twin of a physical garment. You can go into creativity. There's this French brand called Etam. That's exactly what they did. They launched a 5-item collection, 50 NFTs each. And the NFT was sold for the retail price of the standard physical product, and it was pre-orders. They launched the production after the sale of the NFT was closed. It's a very smart model. Makes a lot of sense.
Agreed. David, would you like to have any thoughts or add some input?
Yeah, I would definitely agree towards like a more active community base. I think that's an important KPI. But then, I'll switch the question a little. I think something important for brands to look at is think what kind of skill sets are they going to need? What kind of processes are they going to need? And start thinking ahead. So, as Max said, we're at the beginning of this. And I think you have to rethink, what talent is in your pipeline.
I definitely agree. To add on to your question, for those who may be interested in learning or contributing their skill sets into these areas, what type of topics or specializations do you think that people should start studying, whether that's in school or just on their own, in order to become more prominent in augmented reality and digital other portions of digital assets? Anyone can feel free to add their input.
Yeah, I think number one would be the design, right? Design in certain programs. And then you can probably even take it as far as I think the more digital we get, the more we almost go back to understanding anthropologically how humans connect and what social media has done. So I think people that are students in human nature become important aspects as well.
Definitely.
But I feel like actually we are moving towards a point where to become a digital fashion designer, I mean, hopefully sooner than later, you wouldn't have to be that technical. I mean, and you wouldn't have to have all of the technical skills that, say, 010, a community of creators has. Like, I come to these Twitter spaces that we're holding, and that's insane. Like, I don't understand half of the words, even though I'm in the industry. It's absolutely brilliant. I love these people. So you wouldn't have to have these technical skills sooner, I think, than later. I am cautiously optimistic about what could happen eventually with AI generation, but not in the ways most people think. So I think I definitely am not optimistic in any way about like AI stealing artists' jobs or you trying to generate something in the style of someone else. It's going to be pathetic. That's not going to be fun. But I think exploring new ideas, like what we all, I think, are doing with ChatGPT or GPT-3 in our everyday work. Like, I constantly check what I'm writing to see whether it makes sense to an AI. And I feel like for designers working with AI, but in this regard, is going to be pretty huge. So I think like once we have some tools, there will be a very easy way to sort of test out your concept, test out your ideas, see where you could go, and then go there. You would still need technical skills, I think, but it would probably, it probably will be easier. And, because there wouldn't just be the generative AI, there would be stuff that will help you adapt your items, that will help you build them better. Like, we are working on things like this internally here at Return. Like, we're working on remeshing software that helps designers and so on. So I feel like the entry level will be, the bar will be lower. And I think that that's absolutely great, because right now it's pretty high. But I don't want anyone to be hampered by that, to feel afraid to enter the world of digital fashion, because while the bar may be higher than it is for, like, I don't know, just photoshopping stuff onto sweatshirts and printing it out, the opportunities are even higher.
Agreed.
And if I can add to everything that was said,
Please.
if we look at right now, a lot of brands, a lot of groups have created Web3 teams, Web3 departments. And now you have this new generation of talents coming from Web3. They are very native to the space. They work in luxury brands or consumer brands, and they spearhead the Web3 roadmap and strategy for all these big brands and these big groups. And I think the uniqueness of it is that no one has figured it out and no one knows. You don't have a higher up VP or executive who knows better than the entry level, the junior or the manager. No one knows better because the space is so new. And I think there's a gigantic and amazing opportunity for all these Web3 enthusiasts to join brands, corporations, and to lead the way on all these endeavors, because Web3 for me is a new channel, whether it's marketing, distribution, or communication. We will have products within it. We have products, digital assets within it. And so it's just going to mimic the existing architecture of any brand and any corporation. It's just that we're going to have to learn to do things differently.
Yep.
Dropping an NFT collection, and we saw that with Porsche, with Mugler in the past 2 weeks. Dropping an NFT collection, it's a product launch, and it requires a skill set and a knowledge of the space that you only learn from doing it. And it doesn't replicate, there's nothing like it. It doesn't replicate any of the product launches that one might know from launching physical products on e-com or physical stores. So I think there's an opportunity there for anyone and everyone who loves luxury, fashion, branding, consumer goods, and Web3.
Definitely. And I think what's also important is developing case studies once we implement these cool projects, right? Displaying what our key learnings was, what are the opportunities, what are the risks that were taken. I think just sharing all of the details, well, not the specific details, but at least the overview of like what your project was to the entire community will also help us move forward as a whole. And one key thing that I've noticed keeps coming up with all of you is doing your research, as well as kind of looking back to determine what's going to happen in the future, right? Like Maxim, I know you mentioned designers in like the 1960s, and David, you mentioned anthropology. So conducting a lot of research to create these creative ideas and just looking to the past to determine our future is definitely something to consider. So I know we have 10 minutes left, so I want to end with like fun questions. What is your dream fashion project? If you can do anything in the world with like the technologies that exist, doesn't exist, what would that dream project look like? David, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of working on my dream project. I'm working for an incredible Web3 company, and we're working with amazing kind of creatives and media entities, and we just became an innovation partner with CFDA. And the other half of my life is I'm the footwear designer who creates brands in real life, and but does 3D models first and kind of shows them to the market. So I kind of find a good balance. But what would the dream be? I mean, I think the dream would be to upend what a fashion runway show is and kind of change it to an experience that blends physical and digital and VR. And I think that's something I'd like to do probably have to do it in the next 6 to 12 months before someone else does it.
Definitely. I love to see that dream project once you get to do it.
All right.
Maxim, would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, obviously, I have to say that Zero Turn is already a dream project for me. And being a part of this amazing team and working with all these amazing people here is an absolute pleasure. And the brands we're working with, completely exceed my expectations when it comes to working with fashion brands, which were pretty high already. So yeah, but of course, I mean, like if we are talking about theoretical stuff, I think being the first to do a collaboration between some up-and-coming but influential 3D garment designers that only work with AR and virtual clothes in general, and connecting them to one of the major established brands, just to sort of and to cross pollinate their creativity and to be at that moment there where new talent and old. I wouldn't say it's really hard to explain what's the allure of the established luxury brands, but I think Olivier knows, if there is this thing about them, they have their history, they have their heritage, and they also have this, this spirit. And I feel like being in the moment when new designers from the digital garment space come and collaborate with these established fashion brands, I think that's going to be a very interesting point. And I feel like this has already been happening slowly in the NFT space, etc. But I feel like, being at every single one of these collaborations is a dream right now, because it would show that they're on par. And later, the emergence of the first designer that would rival the established brands. Now, that's going to be a fantastic moment as well. I feel like being there at that point in time will be a pleasure for anyone involved in either tech or fashion.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. Yeah, very cool. On my side, it's kind of, it's not a project, it's more a moment in time when everything that we are working on, everything we're building all together becomes the absolute adopted reality, to which actually I'm sure that we will, with the advent of AR glasses, we're going to live in a completely different experience of the world. And so I picture a future where, especially the younger generation, which will come to financial power and will become the largest consumer cohort of the future. For them, they will move from buying physical products and buying digital assets. They will have a physical life, a digital life. Identity is going to be mixed in there with avatars, makeup, identity, and you will have a much more dynamic, entertaining, rich from data points, rich experience of the physical world through AR filters. So for me, what I'm excited about is being part of this very early stage reality that we are all building towards. And I can't wait to see, in 10, 15 years, what type of world we will live in and the relationship to brands and products, what it will be.
Yes, I love that. Now, look, we have 5 minutes left. And to close out, I would love to know everyone's predictions for 2023. So I predict that we're going to see more use cases with ChatGPT and AI within fashion, but I would love to know what your fashion tech predictions are for 2023.
Yeah, I'll jump first. I agree. I think it's the year of AI. And I think the use cases of using AR is going to explode.
Yep.
And we're going to walk down major streets in all the fashion cities in the world, and AR is going to be right in our face. Stores are going to come alive. Mirrors will be magic, and phones will be portholes to, deeper experiences.
I love that. Maxim? Yeah. Oh, or Olivier, whichever.
Go ahead, Maxim.
Okay. Well, thank you, David. Your prediction just meshes perfectly with what is in here, so that's amazing. I would have to add that, yes, I feel like generative tools are definitely going to be a big hit this year, and we're going to see more and more of that. I mean, yesterday in our Twitter Spaces, one of the creators, part of our today's drop of 20 plus AR items. So she mentioned that she had she was essentially stumped during her process. She wanted to use a copyrighted painting, but couldn't. And she used AI to create something entirely new that would have the same feeling, but would never infringe on anyone's copyright. And I feel like that's a very interesting example of someone using AI. Also, we're seeing designers more and more frequently using AI tools like Midjourney or Stable Diffusion to generate textures. So I think it's empowering creativity in small ways, and that's absolutely amazing. And we are also releasing a very interesting tool this spring that's going to put AI into the hands of our users and allow them to generate garments with AI prints. So we'll see how cool is that's going to be. We played with internal demos in here, and it's been pretty cool. So I want to see our users' creativity out there. So yeah, year of AI, absolutely. Why not?
Great, Olivier.
So yeah, of course I agree. AI, AR. So if I can add something different, it would be the consolidation of the space, consolidation of Web3, where already there is a massive progress that has been made compared to early 2022, where it was driven by FOMO and a very large misunderstanding of what Web3 and the metaverse were about. And so I think that we are going to see more and more projects that will pave the way to what the future will be. NFTs, my future, my prediction is that we will all have NFTs. We will all have crypto wallets. We don't care that we have NFTs. We don't care. We don't know that we have crypto wallets, but they are just the technological layers that will power new benefits, new apps, new engagement, new whatever. But and so we're going to start seeing more and more projects around loyalty, rewards, new type of CRM, and all of this will become more and more seamless. Brands are going to go into more ambitious projects, especially around digital fashion, because that's the natural evolution for every luxury brand, every fashion brand, for that matter. The opportunity of digital fashion. And so for me, it's more about the consolidation of all of these different elements into a more seamless and better user experience.
Wow, thank you so much. I loved all of your takes on the predictions for 2023. And I see Claire has joined, so I'll pass it over to her.
I'm back. Yes, thank you. This was amazing. It was so informative. What a great group. Koi, thank you so much for moderating. But these insights, the predictions, something I have to tell you, my favorite takeaways from this were that everybody is working on their dream project already. I think that is a wonderful place that we are in right now in 2023. It's a very fortunate place to be working on your dream project. There were also some other really interesting key takeaways that we sometimes have to look backward in order to predict the future, and that we should not measure success by the amount of income that we're getting from something. And I think this is really very interesting as we move more and more into Web3 and it becomes just part of our lives. We move away from Web2, that we're looking at different ways of valuing everything. So once again, thank you so much to this group of panelists. It was absolutely wonderful. I hope this was as informative to the audience as it was to me. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, everyone.
Same here. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
Pleasure.
You too.